Good morning, everyone. I actually have two memories of Canada's centennial celebration. I remember standing up in my public school classroom singing Canada, and I was shocked recently to realize I still remember all the words, and I think this morning we may hear the music. And second, going to Expo 67 and seeing those surprising and inventive buildings that we might live in someday. And I remember feeling a first sense of pride about being something called Canadian, and for me as a child, it was the first time that I'd ever felt an affiliation as a citizen of a country. And I think it's fitting for me that my first sort of instilling of Canadian pride came into my experience through the arts and culture. And it's important to remember, especially in a forum like this, where we're all going to be impressing each other with our brilliant intellectual ideas and so on, that what moves us and what endures is often not what touched our minds, but what touches our hearts. Back in 1967, the arts and culture agenda in Canada was all about establishing our national institutions and building buildings. Stratford, the National Ballet, Canadian Opera Company, and many others were still in a startup phase, and they were performing in tents and school gyms and local arenas. Centennial funding built many art centers from coast to coast, and the Canada Council was established around this same era. It was a bold and transformatory arts agenda during this time. This surge of activity was thanks in part to the 1950s Massey Commission, which observed, if modern nations were marshaled in the order of importance which they assigned to the arts, Canada would be found far from the vanguard. She would be near the end of the procession. It was a call to action that ignited a strong intention to establish Canada's arts identity. And today we're still enjoying the fruits of that national intention, and we could easily spend all morning on what had been accomplished from that. But our point today is, what is our intention today? What do we want people 50 years from now to look back and say, here's what they wanted to accomplish in the arts in 2017, and look what happened. 2017 will not be about creating arts institutions or building buildings. In fact, it may be about figuratively taking down the walls and bringing the arts into our streets and into our homes. In 1967, we experienced art by sitting in rows in a darkened auditorium, facing a stage, which is where the art was. We would applaud, go home, and the next day read the critic's review to give us the verdict on what we'd seen the night before. A barrier grew up between those who produce art and those who consume it. This barrier is now being joyfully pulled down like a Berlin Wall by audiences and artists alike. We still go to the movies, but as we just heard from Martin this morning, high school students are producing films that in 1967 would have required a movie studio. Public school children still watch cartoons, but they also make their own. A 9-year-old in my family produced his first CD of original compositions last year. Authors no longer wait at the pleasure of publishers to make their voices heard. They're self-publishing. We still flock to hear great artists, but we have glee clubs and choirs springing up everywhere, and we still have those professional critics, but their voices are tempered, sometimes even drowned out, by our tweets and likes and blogs. We have taken art back into the hands of the amateurs. We have remembered that we're all capable of creative expression, and we have new tools to engage in the arts in new ways. And this rise of the amateur is perhaps the single defining trend of the arts in our age. For professionals, it can seem frightening. If everybody's an artist, will anyone come and see me? But any hockey professional will tell you that it's the kid that plays hockey who's their biggest and most loyal fan. So what does all that mean for 2017 celebrations? It means that instead of only commissioning one song for the whole nation to sing, that we crowdsource thousands of them. Let's have a kids' songwriting competition in every province. At the national level, we could do an exchange so that you'd have schools in BC singing songs written by kids in Quebec, or schools in Newfoundland singing prairie songs. And instead of commissioning only one architect to envision how we might live in the future, Why don't we have high school students create those films and other works of art that capture for them the Canada that they want to grow into? And because kids need heroes, and because we all need examples to open up our vision and experience, let's invite Canada's professional artists to do the same. Canadian arts institutions and the festivals should be asked to commission new works of art to mark this moment in our nation's history and point us to the future. Newly commissioned works become part of repertoires, and they return again and again to our stages and our galleries over the next 50 years. They're less bulky and stagnant than infrastructure, but perhaps more solid, because great art endures the test of time. So 2017 won't be about investing in infrastructure in the arts. Hopefully, it will be about investing in content. But what about the rest of us who are not in school and are not professional artists? I propose that we do two things for Canada's 150th. First, that we build on the Culture Days movement across Canada as a way to get us all involved as amateurs in both producing and consuming art. I'd start in 2015, so 2015, 16, and 17, communities across Canada would dedicate this one day of the year to creating and consuming art that defines us as Canadians. And ideally, it should be an event that integrates and combines professional artists with the amateurs in large-scale participatory events. And just to give you an example of one of those, not related to 2017, but Luminato Festival, as was mentioned, is coming up. And we have on our Luminato website pieces of music that anyone can learn, scored for any instrument. And so on June 22nd in David Pico Square, Peter Ungen, the conductor of the Toronto Symphony Orchestra, will be conducting not just his own professional musicians, but hundreds of Torontonians and others who will come to David Pico Square having learned the music with their instrument to participate in this music mob. So I think that's an idea of the kind of thing around a Canadian theme that could be happening for our 150th, and the National Culture Days organization would work very well to coordinate those events across Canada and shine a spotlight on what would emerge, and then maybe CBC could showcase the results. And a second idea. It seems to me that in Canada, we need to do more to celebrate our heroes. We have such a fierce love of fairness in this country that we are reticent to extol those who should be recognized for their exceptional qualities and achievement. How about something we might call the Hero Project, asking Canadians to identify the true heroes in their lives and give them an avenue to publicly acknowledge them? And I would think especially heroes that are outside of their own field, who have helped them to see the world differently. As an example, as someone with a business career, a hero in my life has been the late Kenneth G. Mills, a Canadian philosopher and musician. In the 1990s, I would sometimes sneak away from my office for a few hours to go and see him. We would sit in his library talking about the arts, and he would say things like, "The purpose of music is to reveal to man his innate at-one-ment with a harmonic state of being." Or we would talk about Canada, and he would say, "The future of Canada is a great nebulous question because there is no future to Canada if people have not achieved a correct identity. And it's not achieved intellectually. It's achieved by adopting what is untarnished within an individual and allowing that to exude the brilliance of a golden intention." Dr. Mills is a hero to me because of his unique perspective and eloquence, which challenged the kind of dullness of my pedestrian considerations. Well, he was just being his natural artistic self. So what is the golden intention for arts and culture on Canada's 150th? I propose that it be to engage Canadians in getting in touch with their inner amateur, which of course means lover of, not just so that we can all have a nice time drawing or singing songs or writing poetry, but because the arts enliven facets of our nature that our busy lives often preclude. True creative expression spills over into how we make decisions and how we conduct our business and personal lives. To me, this is how arts and culture will contribute to making Canada an even greater nation. So I'll close on a philosophical note again with another provocative quote by Kenneth Mills. Why are the arts so important? Because they attune man to a harmonic presence within himself that is maybe more real than the poundage that goes with your time-space continuum. Thank you.
One of the things I did recently as I traveled to Europe, went to Rome. And I can't help but be struck by how history is conveyed, or empires and great nations, what's left of them were the great artistic installations that they left behind. And that's how we got to learn from them. What do you see going forward to 2017 as being the thing we could leave behind for 100, 200 years from now that people would learn most about Canada from?
I would say that it should be in new works of art, say a new opera, ballet, film, theater works, that type of thing, as opposed to buildings. And sometimes in those countries like Rome, that great history and inheritance in physical structures can actually be limiting. And I know that some artists come to Canada because we have more of a blank slate to work from. We are creating those great things now. We're not living off of the past. We have the chance to do those things today in our country. And I think that's the great opportunity of Canada.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.